Welcome to Life on Maui. I'm your host, Steve and Freid. We are coming to you live from Kula on the beautiful island of Maui, sitting on the balcony of really one of my favorite people. Pali Summerlin came into my life about 8 or 9 months ago and has been an amazing influence in just about every possible way. She's a woman who has tremendous insight into life, and I have found that her presence for me has caused the most wonderful transformation. So, Pali, here we are. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. It's really great to be here. It's been a wonderful time that we've had together.
Oh my God, John.
Yeah.
I mean, wonderful time. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not just in person. I mean, I've been overseas and we talk on the phone.
Right.
And there have been some moments that have been absolutely enlightening being with you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So there is a way of perceiving reality that is causing suffering in the world. What is that?
Well, it's come to me that fundamentally there's an inversion between what is cause and what is effect. And this has come out in quantum physics and in the sciences that consciousness is cause. And so as that works and we are aware of our own consciousness as being the cause of our reality, things can shift. What we usually do in the world now is that the external reality, which is in fact effect, is seen as the cause of our experience. And when that happens, we're caught off kilter, fundamentally off kilter. Consciousness's cause at the individual level points to the way in which each of us is creating a world, and it corresponds to what we believe and who we believe ourselves to be. So that correspondence is what we see as the effect. If it's not something we like, I always say, you know, there's a way in which we look in the mirror and we clean the mirror when our hair is messy instead of combing our hair. And that's what we've been trying to do in the world, whether it's individually or collectively. We look out there and we don't like what we see, and we keep mucking around. Sometimes like moving the furniture around on the deck of the Titanic. So we're dealing with what is effect instead of going to what's cause. And this is the shift, I think, that's happening in consciousness. And that's why we look at 2012 and all these predictions about shift and change, and we see it, we know it in ourselves, and we see it a lot in the collective. For most people, they just see the bad news, but for many of us, we're starting to see things come together in a whole new way. And I certainly see it in people I work with. Knowing themselves as cause in the matter, that's a point of power.
So there's a real inversion, and this happens, and I love this, whenever you and I speak. There's an inversion, and there's a way that you often, what I would call, flip it. How would you describe that? What is it? What is that inversion? You might have just said it, but say it again. What's that inversion? What is it? And whenever you do that, I find things just open up.
Yeah, so it happens often in working with somebody, and it may go like this. If only he would stop doing that, then I'm not asking for much. I just want him to be a little bit nicer. I want him to be more considerate, a little more respectful. And the inversion on that, the turnaround on that is, are you being that way to yourself? Don't expect somebody else to be who you need them to be until you're that way to yourself. That's the way in which consciousness is cause in the matter of relationship. It's who we take ourselves to be and our self-relationship that shows up in our external world. And often it's with an other. And so every time we attribute the cause of our experience to another person, a condition in the outer world, we're working at the level of the problem where there's no solution. Every solution you find at the level of the problem creates 12 more problems. That's what's happened in the collective world. That's why war doesn't work. You know, being at peace in oneself. The war ends in us. The self-love begins in us. We show up in the center of the world that is ours, and who we show up as shows up as an external world. Interestingly enough, it starts at a very personal level in the way of our body. And whenever there's
in what way? You mean in terms of some kind of pain or dis-ease or
right,
something?
yeah, and a dis-ease, so that when our inner condition is one of blame, it's one of victim, it's one of complaint, more commonly, then that's the energy that as it goes through our body, which is the first level of our external reality. Our body and our mind are our external reality.
Body and mind are external reality.
Interesting, yeah. And so as whatever the energy, the frequency, we are going to actually consider it to be the thought. We might be able to recognize it as our thinking pattern or a thought. But whatever that frequency is of that thought, like I said, a complaint or a problem, it goes energetically into the body, out into the world, and the world materializes. We are literally the space in which our world arises.
So this is really a key thing. So this is often the turnaround. It's like what it is that I'll make it personal. What it is that I'm seeing.
Right.
What it is that I'm seeing is a real good indicator.
Right.
So it's not to try and go out there and change it, but to look at that as an indicator of, go ahead, you take the ball with that one.
Yeah.
Look at that as an indicator.
Yeah, when you see that, that's information. All that's ever going on for us is information. And but if the information has a charge on it, like you see it and you don't like it, and your first inner judgment is it shouldn't be that way, then that is information about who you're being. Fundamentally, it's information about who you're being to yourself.
Say that again.
Okay, so you see something out there and you have a charge on it.
Yes.
Then that's information about you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just information. It's beautiful. Oh, wow, this is reality. I love my life, right?
Yeah.
Which has gotten to be your statement a lot lately.
Really? Yeah.
Or it's something that's like, oh my God, why does it have to be that way? And can't they be different? Anytime it's like that, it's about you. And that incident is an opening to more freedom, more sense of self-regard. The minute that you pull it back in and say, one question is, how am I being that way to myself? Say it's an incident of lack of respect for you or anger at you, and then you find that in yourself. This is the deal. When you clear it up here, it clears up out there. This is the amazing point of power. This is what all the spiritual traditions have pointed us towards. I am that. I am that. And since I am that, I decide, who do I want to be? Yeah.
Well, that's really a big one right there. What do I want to decide to be?
Right.
Because a lot of what we've been doing is that's majorly transformational. It isn't the paradigm of like working things out or figuring it out or working it through. It's more stepping into a whole other being, a whole other reality. So speak to that. And the other part is that I love is a lot of times you'll say, it wouldn't occur to me that things should be any different than they are.
Right. Yeah.
I just love when, I mean, to you, it doesn't occur to you that anything should be different than it is. So those two things to me are just fabulous. Can you speak to those?
Well, the whole idea, when you talked about identity to begin with, like stepping into, the difference between being the one for whom this is true, I am abundant, I am love, I am connected, the difference between being that and trying to figure that out. You can feel what a different frequency that is. We talk about frequency. Frequency has a scientific definition, but at the level of feeling, it has a feeling to it. You know what it feels like to be depressed. You know what it feels like to be elated. And so those are the frequencies. Who you take yourself to be and what you take to be true about the world determines who you're going to be in it. In other words, how you interact, what comes forth from you then corresponds as your world. So the shift comes in your identity. Fundamentally, it's about belief. If you have a fundamental belief that life is hard, then, and this is another topic, but it's about thought. We are being thought. Why do the thoughts that come to me come to me? Why do the thoughts that come to you come to you? My theory about that, my experience of that, is that the belief that I have about any particular thing, say the belief that most people have that life is hard, just kind of like as foundational belief, then the thoughts that start to come to them, it's like the belief is a transmitter, and the thoughts that start to come to them will fit that belief that life is hard. And so whatever shows up, they see it through the lens of that belief. And the thought will be, well, see, there's just not enough money, or that's just not going to work out. And so always, whatever we believe is showing up in our thinking and in our world to prove that it's right. It's a we can prove, you know, somebody tells you, I never have a good relationship, they can show the history that that's true.
Wow.
But it's who they're being. Relationship doesn't work for me. I've never found the right one. And that it's who they're being, that the world has no choice. There's this great quote from Lao Tzu. Do not try to change the world. The world is a perfect vessel. And it's a perfect vessel for showing us who we are. So basically, the work that I do has to do with knowing who you are. And then the realization that the malleability in consciousness is that you can choose again. You can see through something as a belief and choose another belief. You can't push this one aside with resistance and choose another one. You have to see through it and know, if I've been believing this, I can believe this.
So when you say knowing who you are, knowing who we are, what do you mean by that? What is that?
You know I like that question.
I know you do. I know you do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, on the oracle at Delphi, it says, know thyself. And I think all of us have an idea about what it is to know ourselves, is to know our quirky ego personality self, you know. And I'm as quirky as you are. We're quirky.
We are.
And we have this idea about who we are. But what that means to know thyself in the most fundamental way, the core self-concept is to know yourself as the space, the awareness in which your reality arises on your behalf.
One more time.
Okay.
I like that one.
I love that. To know thyself as the space, as the awareness in which a reality arises on your behalf. And so what happens is that you feel your reality arising in the space and consciousness that you are, which is apparently all the science is pointing to that's actually the way it works, right? We start to experience that when we start to appreciate ourselves and love our lives. When you have a world that you're always adversarial towards, that's being adversarial towards yourself. And that shows up, as we were talking about, the correspondence of your reality to who you're being. You can feel what it would feel like when you're always against it. It shouldn't be this way, if only it were that way. And in that dynamic, you are actually against yourself, because this is your world.
Wow.
Your world is yourself writ large. And so when you're against your world, which goes back to, you said, my experience ongoingly is that what if nothing's wrong, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like, this is what is.
It wouldn't occur to you that anything should be different than it is.
No,
Yeah.
and in that points to self-regard and to appreciation for what's creating. And in that space, you can feel the frequency of that is that of openness. Now what we're talking about is openness to what? What can come in? What can come into that space? Well, what in the kind of pseudoscience, the metaphor between consciousness and quantum physics is that it would be the field. So the quantum field is the unseen.
When you say field, do you mean quantum field?
I do,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like the unseen, the stuff, the source of this reality. How it comes in depends on that frequency. So you can feel, if I think that everything's wonderful, right, then the quantum field has access to me. That's actually the other aspect of ourselves. I am identity, creator of my reality, and I'm connected to an aspect of the field, which many people might call God, or all that is. When you have that relationship to your own life, then the field is like moving like this towards you and in correspondence to that love and appreciation. So our only job is who we're being.
So what do you do? You kind of said it before. What do you do? Because it appears that sometimes things show up that you don't like,
Right.
that are showing up in your world. Something shows up you don't like. Somebody's coming at you a way you don't like. So many examples of that. What would you do? What do you do?
Well, the first thing is that it's yours. See, if you just get that whatever's happening out here that looks so much like other, truly it does. I understand that, but it's happening in your life. So it's yours.
So if it's happening, it's happening within you.
It is. Yeah, that's right.
And it's manifesting on the outside,
Right.
as an opportunity to look at that and to say, oh, that's really just inside of me, and
Yeah, it's information about you.
yeah,
If you want that to stop,
yeah,
then you shift to where it counts. You have to shift to who you're being. And mostly that's going to go to your relationship to yourself. So who are you to yourself? How much regard do you hold not your ego-personality self, but the awe-filled understanding of yourself as cause, as the space in which a reality arises that's uniquely and only yours. Each of us creates a world that way. It's very much an inside job. You can't change that world without changing this. If you change this, the world changes.
Yeah,
And you know it changes very quickly, right?
I've seen it. It's really amazing.
It is, yeah.
I mean, I'm really blown out in this last 8 months. My whole life is amazingly transformed.
Right. So it's so exciting to start to know that what I used to think when I was much younger is what I thought God must be is the way it really is and the way it really works. And through years, 40 years of considerations in this reality and this consciousness approach to the nature of reality, this is what I found to be true. And it's always opening more and more.
Yeah.
It opens more and more all the time because it's alive. It's not static. What I know for sure is that even language can only point to it. What we say it is, that's not it. It's pointing to it, but our experience is what we can know. When you experience something, you know it. Yeah.
So how do you see a correlation between what we're talking about and some other teachings like Abraham, who talks a lot about, Abraham's the one, Esther Hicks channels, has to do with paying attention to what you want. And that could even go into the next question, that why is what do you want as a clarifying question so important? Because they touch on that too. Why is that so important?
Right. Well, when we're talking about the relationship to yourself, just to diverge a little bit,
Sure.
one of the things that's so common in our culture is that we're always told that we're here to do unto others. We're here to be here to serve. And I think that that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that if you haven't put yourself at the center energetically of your own reality, and this is an energetic thing, this is not an ego thing, this is not narcissism, this is knowing oneself as at the center of my own reality and what that feels like and what that means. Once you're there, it's like you're not expecting, you're not demanding, you're not looking for something out here to give you what you're missing. So to get there, which is what I call the core self-concept work, this question, what do I want, is where we start. Because what we're looking for is, if you want that, if you want something, say you want a relationship.
And even more specifically, a relationship that has certain qualities to it,
Right.
that are important to you.
Yeah, if you want that and you don't have it, then there's a belief that's about that's keeping you from showing up in your life. Is that, I mean, isn't that interesting?
So a belief about that, and then, as you were saying before, a belief that then causes a thought that then causes a reality.
Exactly.
And then confirms it goes full circle.
Absolutely.
Goes full circle.
It's
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you can say it's a woman who wants a certain kind of man to show up. And only if a man shows up, he's never that one. Because she'll have a belief somewhere under there that either those men aren't available, they're not available for her, she's never going to get what she wants, you can't have it all, but there's going to be a belief there somewhere. The minute that you see through that as a belief, then you start to have things show up differently. That's the way it works. This is amazingly important information, because what's happening, because we don't understand the way it works, is that the external world, for each of us individually and especially collectively, is always up against itself, because it's always working at the level of effect. And then, say in the instance of a woman wanting a relationship with a man, she might think, well, we just need therapy. He can be okay. Just get a little bit more therapy.
Right.
And, but an improved version of that same man is not going to be what she wants either. It's like...
Well, say a little more about that. So an improved version of that same man isn't what she wants either. Say a little more about that, because that's very interesting.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's like it's like what I said before, there's no solution for the problem at the level of the problem. That's kind of a paraphrase of an Einstein quote. Basically what it means is at the level the problem's created, which is her belief that the man can't be good enough, or he's not going to the one she wants is not going to show up. There will be a range, but it's held at a polarity. He's good enough, he's not good enough, right? So somewhere along that line, she still got him. It's like, whatever that stick is, one end's good, the other end's not that great, but you still got the stick. To come off the polarity means to come out of the belief. Yeah?
To get out of the polarities, to get off the belief.
Right.
And then what would be a next step?
Well, to see that that's what you believe. If you've been believing this, and that's a result of your belief, all your experience in relationships that haven't worked, and with men who haven't been what you thought they should be.
Right.
If that's beliefs caused all that, and you see that it was a belief that caused it, oftentimes there will be an early on decision made about the nature of reality in oneself that sets up all of our lives, and especially some relationship issues, because they come out of our relationship with our caretakers. So
you mean our mothers, fathers?
Mothers, fathers,
whatever.
Yeah. And so the woman that we're talking about might have had an early on experience that nobody ever showed up for her. Not really. They never showed up for her. When it really mattered, they didn't show up for her. And her whole life has been one example of that after another. And so she's sure that that's true. So when a man shows up for her, he can't show up for her. She already knows that nobody ever shows up for her.
Wow.
So even if a man showed up for her, in her experience, it wouldn't be that. It can't be that. So when she sees how that played out from early on, and you can see what that's created that you don't want, you go for what you do want. And so we're looking for the version of her. And this yeah, this is an interesting one.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah. So I have many sources that I've pulled together my work from, and one of them is The Nature of Personal Reality by Jane Roberts, which is a channeling from Seth. And one of the things that Seth talks about through Jane Roberts in that book is many worlds, many selves, which is interesting correlation, because what we've been saying is that whoever you take yourself to be, myself, what self am I, shows up as a world. The extension of that theory is that in some dimension that's not apparent to you, there's a version of you who has what you want. This may be the one who just didn't go for that. You know, I can't get what I want. And that's what you're looking for. So you've been believing that a man can't show up, they don't show up for you, right? You see that as a belief. And now you say what you do want. I want someone to show up for me. Now I have two like prongs on this one. You show up for yourself. It's not anybody else's job. And when you do it, everybody shows up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is that there is a version of you for whom people show up. And what does it feel like to be that version of you? It'll be very familiar to you. You may have experienced that sometime in your life. You know, being the one.
And that's really at the core, one of the cores of how we've worked together. It actually has to do with what you just said, feeling what it feels like to be that.
Right.
And it's very profound. It's no small thing.
Exactly.
It's like, it sounds like a small shift in one sense, but it's really not. To really identify in a body sense with something that actually is familiar.
Right.
You know, it's familiar. It's like, okay. And to really feel into that, it causes some kind of real deep shift. And then from that shift, things do occur differently in the world. And then it's like, wow, things are occurring differently. And then it just reinforces that again.
Yeah. So the body sense of that one is what you're going for. It's not a visualization.
Right.
It's not an idea. And I do work with a particular protocol that elicits that, evokes that shift. But when you get that shift, then you are a different one at the center of your reality. And from where we started, that's what the external reality is in correspondence to, whether it's in your physical body, in the external world, in your relationships. If you're no longer being the one for whom no one shows up, but you're now the one who loves her world, loves herself, and has all of the connections, then that has a body sense, and that's who you are in the world. The correspondence is going to happen because that's the way it works.
Yeah.
It's very pragmatic. How does it work? This is the way it works.
Yeah.
You make the shift, the world changes.
Quickly. Pretty quickly, too.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. So, you've probably already answered this to some degree, but I think it's worth coming back to. What does it really mean to have true self-regard?
Well, there's no way to have true self-regard for the ego personality. It's fun, it's interesting, the ego personality, but we need to get a little distance from that. What it means is to know yourself as the space in which a reality arises, because how can you not be in profound regard and actually in love with that? I am the space in which a reality arises that's uniquely mine on my behalf. And when you have that sense of who you're being, You have an ego personality. You have the way you look, the way you talk, the way you are with people. But that's like the outfit, right? You know yourself as the space. You know, we were talking a little bit ago about, I was mentioning in the Old Testament, during the creation story, and everything God would create in the creation story, the first day, the second day, and he would look upon it and say, ah, that is good.
Right.
You know, and to have that sense for ourselves, because this is the way in which, made in the image of God, we are those creators, the space in which a world arises. Ah, it's good. You know, that sense of, that's when true self-regard comes in. That's when you fall in love with yourself and stay there. You fall in love with yourself as creator of your world, uniquely yours.
So how do you fall in love with something? So here's the I don't know. It's not a catch, but so how do you fall in love with something that's coming into your world that might not be feeling like you want it to feel, or looking like you want it to look? Because going back to the thing of, for you, it doesn't occur to you that something should be different than it is. But for most of us, if something's showing up that you're not liking the way it looks or the way it feels, it's like, how can you say from that perspective, and it's good?
Right.
How do you, that there?
Well, you know, it's like, this is mine. It's my world. It's my world. It's like showing up. I sometimes say, you know, you may have a baby that's not too cute, and he may have shitty-ass diapers, but he's yours.
Right.
Yeah. So you may not like it that much, but in the awareness that this is mine, it's like, how am I being with this? Again, what it's pointing to, if you have objection to it, is something in yourself. One of my teachers was Harry Palmer, the Avatar, the creator of the Avatar consciousness work, which I did for a few years in the 90s. And my favorite quote from him is, all judgment is self-judgment. All criticism is self-criticism. And when you get to that, that's true. You will extend to yourself a love that will be the light of your world. And that's what it feels like when you know that there's no other. There's no other. And you look around and you see the sphere that is your reality. That's corresponding to who you're being. You love it.
So again, just to come back to that, so something's showing up,
Right.
whatever it might be. Somebody's giving you the finger. They pull up next to your car and they're yelling at you and giving you the finger.
Right. Yeah. Well, the whole thing is that you have a story about what that means, right?
Aha.
Yeah.
Okay, now
Yeah.
this is a kind of another level of this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a story about what that means.
Now, the thing that it shows up in kind of that cartoon, kind of dramatic way to get your attention, right? I was working with someone this morning, and I said, there may be this much, just this teeniest bit of lack of self-respect in you. But the way it has to show up in your world to get your attention is like dramatic and big. So you know, if you see that and you realize what it feels like, then you'll know how you hold that same lack of respect for yourself. And you go there and you find it. You know, in what way am I not respecting myself? It may be very small. It may be that yesterday somebody said, I want you to do this for me, and you didn't want to do it, but you did it anyway. That's a lack of self-respect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 So that's the way. When it shows up, it's going to be information, and it's telling you who you're being to yourself. It's a great feedback loop.
So in that moment, there's the option to do, kind of spell it out a little bit. So there it is, somebody's giving you the finger and yelling at you, and you're recognizing that it's an aspect of you.
Right. To the degree that you are able to see that in that moment, you may not be able to. It may be something you have to come back to. It's a fairly high level of practice to know it in the moment.
Yeah.
If you actually are at that level of practice, it probably won't happen. But whatever happens, it's all like, and pretty soon you just appreciate the play, as in they call it the lila, you know, the play of it all. Yeah.
Surrender. And what, oh wait, we talked about that actually, surrender, and you have a little bit different take on surrender, or the word surrender.
Right, yeah. The whole thing is that when you, for me, it means more relaxation. And what I found, and I think you've had this experience too, is that it's a profound relaxation when you're not against yourself, which shows up as being against your world. There's a kind of way in which allowing, the kind of trusting that who you're being is informing the field, and it's going to show you who you're being, even if you're not aware of it, and you can trust that. It's absolutely trustworthy. It's beyond faith, actually. It's your connection to all that is, and it's going to show you there's this conversation going on between you and God, or you and the field, however it works for you. And in that, you can relax. It's like it's our job. And this is why in some of the sacred texts it says, do nothing and everything gets done, right? It's actually who we're being is the way everything gets done. And when you're relaxed into who you're being, knowing yourself as awareness that's creating a reality by who you are, who you take yourself to be, when you have that, then everything that comes, you can trust it.
Trust everything.
Yeah, you can trust it because it's like it's showing you. It's all on your behalf. It's always only on your behalf. And it's totally trustworthy.
And what's that one line that I love, on your own behalf? There's a longer sentence that you say sometimes.
Well, that your reality, you are the awareness in which your reality arises on your own behalf. You are the space, the awareness. That's what we are. We have all of this other stuff. We have a body, mind, and heart, a mental faculty. But that's what we have. The one that has it is awareness. And as you know yourself more as that, you don't feel the limits, you don't feel the confines of the ego personality. You feel more and more the space in which it's all arising in this moment. I just had an interesting thing that I don't think we have talked about.
Oh, good. Let's hear. Good.
There's between Eckhart Tolle and everybody, all of us who do this work, we have this way of talking about now, about the present moment being the only time there is. And just in the last couple of days in my meditation, it's become clear to me that what we've done is that we've made now a part of time. And so the only way we get now is that if we have a past and if we have a future, and this is now. In fact, the minute that we talk about it, that's not it. This is it. This is not if you take it off that linear sequential thing, then you really have it. This is it. This is all. And we talk about it as now. And so what happens is that we don't get now pressed in from either side by the past and the future. We get it like this. We have it opened in us as where we are always, eternally here. And as we would say, now. But it's a much more open thing. You see, you can see how we've made the construct based on the linear sequentiality that we say, that we're denying when we say that now is the only time there is, right? But we've caught it in that definition. So there's another experience that's out of that, that's more open, more spacious, and more already always this.
Wow.
No.
Yeah, this is, it's an amazing process. And when you, just briefly, or as long as you want, describe, how do you work with people? Like if somebody wants to, they like what they hear and they say, boy, I'd really like to have Pali in my life.
All right.
How do you work with someone?
Well, it truly is my deepest pleasure to connect with people who are wanting to live their fullest and live their lives from the center of themselves on their own behalf. The way I work with someone is we start with what they're experiencing that they'd rather not. And so we start with what is the issue. We have to start with what's not right to get to the opening. And from there we go into the beliefs, seeing what's in the way of it, and starting to just regain their sense of themselves as cause. So it's a wonderful process. I love doing it.
So Pali, I'm sure after listening to this interview, there are going to be people who would like to get in touch with you. So I'm going to give your email address, and if anyone wants to contact Pali, this is how you do it. And you'll see it at the bottom of the screen as well as I'm saying this. It's Paliana7@gmail.com. That's Paliana, the number 7, @gmail.com. And again, I just have to say that this is, for me, has been a fulfillment of something that I've wanted to do for 8 or 9 months now from the beginning.
That's great.
And it came together in the most wonderful way with the most wonderful cameraman. Andre Delorier is behind the camera with the most wonderful equipment, and he's wonderful to work with. And he said, I'd like to work with you one more time because I'm going to be moving to Thailand in January. He said, I'd like to work together. And I said, well, this is perfect because there's no one, to have Pali have the most exquisite everything is my pleasure. So Pali, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the work we've done together.
It's been great, yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun.
Well, you know, people talk about the purpose of life. I think it's fun is the purpose of life.
Yeah, well, that's it.
It's the fun of it all. You know?
Yeah. Well, it is, and that's.
And the lightness of being.
The lightness of being. Yeah. That's right. And it's not unbearable.
Not the unbearable. The absolutely wonderful lightness of being.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So I'm thrilled, and I thank you so much for lending yourself.
My pleasure.
Yeah, sweetheart.
Thank you.
So that's it for this episode of Life on Maui. And I'm just thrilled that I could do this today. Enjoy the show as much as I did. I hope you do. And until next time, aloha.
Call me crazy, but I'm never giving up my